Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining. We'll just be a few more minutes as some more people sign on to the public meeting. Thank you for being here. All right, it's a few minutes after 6:30. I think we'll get started. So good evening, everyone. My name is Luke Buttenwieser. I'm with the City of Stamford Transportation, Traffic, and Parking Department, and we are excited to discuss with you tonight the Springdale Train Station Transit-Oriented Development Project. This is a state-funded roadway safety, mobility, and access project focused around redoing the Springdale train station parking lot and a part of Hope Street in front of the train station parking lot, to enhance safety and accessibility to the Springdale train station. Gray, want to go to the next slide? So before we get started, just some Zoom webinar information. So for questions throughout the presentation, feel free to put those in the Q&A section on the bottom. We'll deal with questions at the end. If you're joining via phone, press *6, and you'll be able to raise your hands. We'll have a Q&A section at the end. But if you think of something, feel free to just jot it down in the Q&A at the bottom. If you're having difficulty hearing any of us, check the volume on your phone or computer just by increasing the volume button on your device. If any questions you don't want to ask on the Q&A, my contact information will be available at the end of the presentation as well as on the project website. Or feel free to give us a call, send us an email if you have any further questions. Next slide. So again, my name is Luke Buttenwieser. I'm with the City of Stamford Transportation, Traffic, and Parking Department. We have a few other representatives here to help go over the project. So I'll let everyone introduce themselves. Janine.
Good evening, Janine Freeman, Special Assistant to Mayor Simmons for Community Engagement and Partnerships.
Hi, I'm Steve George. I'm with the design firm WSP, and I'm acting as project manager for the project.
Good evening, I'm Vahid Karimi from WSP. I will be responsible for traffic planning and design for the project.
And I'm Katie Mercier, also from WSP. I'll be responsible for the civil site design and drainage and just general road and parking lot layout.
WSP is our great team that we have here helping us with the design process. So they've been integral to the whole design, and we're happy to be working with them. So before we get started talking about the project, I just want to touch a little bit on the kind of the policy and planning background we have as a city and as a department. So as I, Gray, want to go to the next slide. So as I said, I'm with the Transportation, Traffic, and Parking Department. We're under the Office of Operations here in the City of Stamford. And our primary mission is to ensure the safe and efficient movement of people and goods throughout the City of Stamford. And then the first part of that is safety. So what drives our roadway designs and any of our mobility infrastructure designs is really safety first. So Stamford, we're happy to be the first city in the state of Connecticut to commit to Vision Zero, which is a commitment for the elimination of fatalities and serious injuries of all roadway users on our road. So we have a commitment to try to achieve that by 2032. So to achieve that, the city undertakes this concept called the safe systems approach. So the safe systems approach really is about human-centered and proactive street design. We want to try to address serious crashes before they occur through various traffic engineering techniques, public education, public enforcement. We understand that people make mistakes. However, those mistakes shouldn't necessarily be deadly. We want to shift blame away from the individual roadway user and onto the system overall. So now that the system is responsible for safety, that's how we improve the design of the safety, the design of the system overall. And then we want to keep all roadway users as safe as possible by designing for the most vulnerable. So pedestrians are the most vulnerable roadway users we have. So when we design for them and their safety, the road becomes safer for everyone else. Then we want to prevent errors as much as possible and lessen the impacts of those errors when they do happen, such as reducing speed. So when we reduce speed, the reaction time of people increases, and then the overall inertia of any sort of crash decreases as well, increasing safety. And then we also design for all ages and abilities. So that's anyone from 1 to 100. That's anyone with mobility impairments, or, if you're a kid and just biking to school, or you're a marathon biker, you do Ironmans and you're a triathlete, or if you're just taking a pleasant stroll in your neighborhood. So we want to design for the whole host and range of users we'll have on the roadway and make sure that they're safe. Next slide. So what I just mentioned is backed by a lot of different city policies and plans that have been occurring over the years. And these policies and plans in our design process and our design thinking has gone into the design overall of this project. So in 2015, Stanford Board of Representatives passed a complete streets ordinance, which requires that we design facilities that support all users. That's pedestrians, bicyclists, transit users, drivers, etc. In 2015, we also completed the Glenbrook Springdale TOD study, which is really kind of the foundation for this project overall. So that was focused on how do we improve access to the Stanford, the two village train stations, so Glenbrook and Springdale. Today we're talking about Springdale, while also generally improving the two neighborhoods and the environs around those train stations. 2015, we also completed the city master plan, and the master plan is a 10-year document that really kind of sets out for the next 10 years the path and direction the city should be taking. So this master plan reinforces the recommendations of the Springdale Glenbrook TOD study, as well as many other things like improving roadway safety, improving access in facilities for bicycle users and bicyclists and pedestrians, improving access to transit, and improving the overall streetscape and streetscapes in Stanford. In 2020, the Board of Representatives passed a shared mobility principles resolution, which really calls out and seeks for Stanford and the city government to improve those facilities for micromobility and shared mobility users. Just recently, a few months ago in 2022, the Board of Representatives also passed a climate emergency resolution. That's basically the Board of Representatives acting as Stanford City Council, urging the mayor to direct all city department heads, committees, and commissions to establish plans and actions to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the city. And the top two recommendations from the Board of Representatives are providing pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure, and also improving access to public transportation to reduce vehicle dependency. So we're hearing loud and clear from the elected officials in Stanford that there's a need to improve access to public transit, and also by providing better bike and pedestrian infrastructure. So us as a city, we listen to that, we take that into account when we design our projects. And then last month, the Mayor Simmons signed the Vision Zero executive order, which directed all city departments, but particularly our department, is charged with eliminating roadway fatalities and serious injuries on Stanford roadways by 2032. So we are charged with basically our designs have to be safety first. And that's what we try to seek out and do with our designs. So next slide, please. So just setting up the project area a little bit, we are talking about the Springdale train station, and part of Hope Street. So really kind of focusing on Hope Street along the train station between Omega Drive and Largo Drive. We're just on the southern part of this kind of Springdale Village proper, so like near a Mort restaurant, for instance, near the Springdale Diner, right smack dab in the Springdale train station parking lot area. Just to kind of give you a general idea of where we are and what we're talking about today. I'm sure most of you are familiar with it. This is actually my station. This is the station I use, my family uses. So I'm an active user of it, and definitely, we're invested in this project as a city and as a department as well, and me personally too. Next slide. So why are we here? Why are we doing this project? What's really the purpose and the need of this project? So we are advancing the recommendations of the Glenbrook Springdale TOD feasibility study that's from 2015. So as the city does its planning process through various different neighborhood plans, transportation plans, the master plan, it really kind of sets out recommendations for infrastructure improvements and policy recommendations that the city should be undertaking. So this project specifically is a recommendation from that master planning process, and that planning process is done with key engagement from the community, working with many stakeholders. So we really try to advance the projects that were recommended by these different planning studies. We want to strengthen the village center along Hope Street. Hope Street really acts as the spine and the core of the Springdale village area, and we really want to emphasize that, encourage people to come down to Springdale. Improving access to transit. So we have the Springdale train station. You can have a one-seat ride right into New York City. It's really a great asset for both Springdale and the city overall, and we want to improve access for all users to the train station. Improve multimodal connectivity. So I just touched on that a little bit, but how do we get people to walk to the train station, bike to the train station, take the bus to the train station, and not necessarily need a car to reduce vehicle dependency. We're realigning the Springdale train station parking lot entrance to Clearview Avenue. So that's safer, first and foremost, and improves ingress and egress from the train station parking lot. We're also improving just the parking lot circulation as well. So I know, like on the southern end of the parking lot, there's like a really tight parking lot area that is formerly used for day parking. We actually no longer have separate parts of the lot for day parking. So we want to improve the circulation there. Like areas around the Kiss and Ride can get very congested, so we want to improve that. Some signal timing at Largo Drive we want to touch on and improve. So improve traffic operations on Hope Street. It's can be congested at certain times. And then of course, traffic calming and gateway improvements on Hope Street. So this is really kind of the entrance to Springdale when you're coming north on Hope Street. How do we slow cars down, welcome into this new space where there's a lot more people, there's businesses, there's cars parking. So we really want to focus and emphasize the traffic calming and the gateway improvements on Hope Street as well. So what we hear from the community, so this is just different things that have come from different studies, as well as just emails, Fix It Stanford requests and phone calls that our department receives. So speeding on Hope Street, is a large complaint we get. We get a lot of complaints about speeding generally in the city. Speeding on Hope Street in particular has been, an item that we've been hearing a lot recently. Difficulty crossing Hope Street at Clearview Avenue. We do have a crosswalk right there at Clearview. There is, it's called an RFB, but it's the button you push and it flashes the lights near the crosswalk sign. But pedestrians have mentioned difficulty of crossing there, cars not stopping for them. Streetscape improvements on Hope Street, specifically on the sidewalk. It's not ADA compliant, it's a little deteriorated. Making the station fully and safely accessible for bikers, pedestrians, and vehicles. That's directly from the recommendations of the Glenbrook Springdale TOD study. And improving the pedestrian and bicycle network. That is from the city bike ped master plan. I believe I missed that actually in the city policy and plan section, but in 2019, we have a bike ped master plan that was completed that, really kind of sets out the vision for improving pedestrian bicyclist facilities and access throughout the city, and then improving and expanding the sidewalk networks throughout the neighborhood as well. So we take what we hear from the community, we have our policies and plans, we have resolutions and executive orders from our elected officials, and we take all of that. We have our master plans, we take all of that, and then that's how we kind of work on developing our designs. For the next slide, please. So I mentioned a lot about the Glenbrook Springdale TOD study, but these are some recommendations from that study itself. So again, the city has this very in-depth planning process where we work with the community. So for instance, I believe the study actually had 6 community meetings, is improving station access for all users, and really improving the train station parking lot itself. So these are directly pulled from that study. So some things you can see here is both studies called for realigning the main vehicular entrance with Clearview Ave, having a specialty paved intersection at Clearview and Hope Street, adding more street trees, redoing the sidewalks along Hope Street, redoing the parking lot circulation, adding some bicycle parking, improving the Kiss and Ride, a new bus shelter, improving the driveways, and really improving the sidewalks. So this concept plan that was developed from the study is really kind of the jumping off point for us as we go into more formal design process. And with that, we're going to the formal design process. So I'll pass along to our design team at WSP, who will speak a little bit more to the designs themselves and how we jumped off from the planning process that the city conducted.
Oh, thank you, Luke. So this slide here shows the overall improvements that are being proposed along Hope Street and within the station parking lot. Our first steps in developing this design were, one, we looked at the 2015 Glenbrook Springdale TOD study that Luke had mentioned. Two, we looked at all city policies and plans. And three, we performed a detailed traffic analysis. And during this process, we looked at various options and configurations that were recommended in the previous study. And we also had several coordination meetings with the city. And through that process, we developed this design that you see here on the screen. One of the main differences with this design over the previous recommendations is having just a single entry and exit point at the station parking lot, which will be aligned with Clearview Avenue. The previous studies looked at having the same access point along with another entry and exit point. One option showed either going to the north of Clearview and the other one was at the south of Clearview. Based on a traffic analysis and considering safety along Hope Street, the final recommendation was to have only a single entry and exit point. And by not having that second entry and exit point, it makes travel along Hope Street safer. And it does this by reducing the number of conflict points. In addition, these second access points previously recommended, they would have been located in close proximity to either Largo or Omega Drive, and this would only cause further potential for traffic-related issues. Other than the number of access points, this design that we're proposing incorporates the similar elements as recommended in the previous study. Items such as traffic calming measures along Hope Street with the raised intersection at Clearview Avenue, landscaping and streetscape elements along Hope Street and within the station parking lot, bus stop improvements along northbound Hope Street, sidewalk improvements throughout the project, more defined parking on Hope Street, bike parking within the station parking lot, and an expanded kiss and ride area within the parking lot for drop-offs. This design provides for multimodal transportation, which leads me into the next slide. So improvements being made under this project, they account for the various users expected to use this facility. As it is multimodal, we're providing, improvements for all modes of traffic, one of the first being pedestrians. This project will provide ADA compliance throughout the project limits. Sidewalks along Hope Street and within the parking lot will be improved. Pedestrian circulation will be improved, and crossings within the station parking lot and along Hope Street will be much safer following these improvements. Regarding cyclists, sharrows will be provided along Hope Street as they are today. In addition, dedicated bike parking will be provided within the station parking lot. The design is going to provide an expanded kiss and ride area within the station parking lot, which provides means for ride sharing services or drop-offs for people to pull in and drop people off or pick them up in the station. Public transit is going to be accounted for by making bus stop improvements along Hope Street. And finally, for automobiles, they're being accounted for by, we're going to be improving in circulation within the station parking lot, providing more defined parking on Hope Street, as well as providing a raised intersection at the intersection of Hope Street and Clearview Avenue, as well as we're going to be providing raised crosswalks in the parking lot. These features will help to calm traffic and improve safety. I'd like to pass things off to Vahid, who will discuss the traffic, and then following Vahid, Katie will provide a deeper look into the proposed design.
Thank you, Steve. As Luke mentioned at the beginning of our presentation, we design our facilities with safety first for all roadway users. So it's really the forefront of our planning and design work. We are also focused on improving mobility for all roadway users, including pedestrians, cyclists, public transit, and also vehicular traffic. So lastly, we are providing, we are providing an improved multimodal access into and out of the Springdale station for all modes of transportation. As I mentioned, the pedestrian, cyclist, and vehicular traffic are all part and parcel of making sure that they're accommodated safely and efficiently into and out of the station. As with many transportation planning projects, one of the first things we do is really to establish a baseline condition. And baseline condition is really looking at the existing condition that's out there. As part of our study, you may have already seen some of the folks out there. We've been collecting traffic data on the roadway system. We have been looking at crash history on the study area roadways. We have been looking at transit, bus stops, ridership. So those are all part and parcel of coming up with a sound engineering design plan. So all that information is going to build into the safety and operational improvements. So as much as we are concerned with the safety condition, with the existing condition, we are also looking at future condition. When the Springdale TOD project is fully completed and the number of additional riders we will experience at the station, the number of vehicular traffic that's going to be generated on the roadway system. So those are all under future condition operational analysis that we look at, and we design the roadway system to support, again, all modes of transportation. So kind of summarize things in terms of operational parameters. We look at speeds on the roadway. We look at the pedestrian activities on the roadway. We look at the bicycle activities on the roadway. So getting that information and working through the planning process and engineering modeling, we are able to come up with a design that is safe and efficient for the project. So just to kind of focus a little bit on the what we're going to be improving, we're looking at enhancing multimodal transportation system on this project, improve sidewalk and connectivity to Springdale Center Village and also Glendale. This is an important area. It's really a gateway into the businesses and folks who live in that area. So we want to make sure that we provide a multimodal traffic transportation system for this project. Improving bus stops and accessibility. I know Steve mentioned a little bit about providing better sidewalks and ADA ramps, so that we are fully entrenched in providing better mobility for all roadway users. We're going to be focusing on a little bit more on operation of the intersections, making sure that the pedestrian crossings are safe, are efficient. And also we have to make sure that the traffic moves efficiently during the peak hour. So we are looking at the operation of especially the Hope Street and Largo Drive signalized intersection as it's impacted by the train operation in and around that area. So we are looking at potentially improving the timing and operation at that intersection. Traffic calming measure is one that we seriously considering for this project, and partially as Luke mentioned, that speeding has been an issue along Hope Street. So we hope that some of the treatments that we are proposing that Katie is going to be talking about will address those type of issues that we experience out there. We want to create a gateway, but at the same time also provide better pedestrian crossings, bringing the curbs a little bit in at the intersections and providing a shorter crossing for the pedestrians. So those are all different types of traffic calming measures that we're going to be introducing into this project. Last but not least is really the access to the train station. We feel as though that bringing the intersection or the driveway across from Clearview will provide a better operation, creating a four-way intersection at that location, and installing an additional rapid flashing beacon. As Luke mentioned, as you can see the picture on the bottom, we do have one that is on the north side of the intersection, but we are also proposing one on the south side of the intersection so that it's more visible for pedestrians and vehicular and motorists, and provides a safer crossing for all pedestrians. And in conjunction with all that, we are looking at providing a raised intersection at that location. That's one of the measures that we do propose for when we start looking at traffic calming measure. That's the treatment that is very predictable and also very efficient to implement. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Katie. Thank you.
Thank you, Vahid. As we go on to the next slide. So this is a slide that we've already shown, but I just sort of wanted to show you again the big picture of the project. And then I'm going to next sort of dive into 4 different areas. We're going to talk first about the intersection. So first, at the main intersection, we are going to be looking to realign the driveway intersection with Clearview Avenue at Hope Street. So you've heard a few people now mention about a raised intersection. So a raised intersection, what that means is the vehicles will have to, it's a very long speed bump, if you will, through the length of the intersection. So for pedestrians, just very similar to at the Stamford station with the picture that you see at the left, the crosswalks will be in a painted, imprinted bituminous asphalt, and those will be level from sidewalk across the intersection to the opposite detectable warning area for our for the ADA accessibility requirements. So the intention of the raised intersection is to help slow the vehicles. Another aspect of this raised intersection is what's called bump outs or curb extensions. So we're going to be taking where the existing curb lines are, and we're going to be angling the curb out into the roadway on Hope Street, or on the eastern side, so north is oriented to the right here. We're going to be taking it from the existing curb line where the parking spaces are and providing a bump out. And what that will do is, so the curbs are going to go closer into the roadway, which that narrowing of the roadway encourages slowing of vehicles, but it also benefits the pedestrians in having a shortened crossing time length of travel while you're in the roadway, which is something that's really encouraged by what's called PROAG, for ADA accessibility. So PROAG is the public rights of way accessibility guidelines. So by shortening those pedestrian access ways, it really improves safety. Also at the raised intersection, we're going to have similar spherical bollards like are present at the Stamford station. And then, as Vahid mentioned, right now there is only one crosswalk across Hope Street. And so with this raised intersection and with the way we're looking to have the pedestrian circulation, we were going to have maintained stop signs on Clearview Avenue and at the driveway. And then there will be the rectangular rapid flashing beacons, or RRFBs, that a pedestrian could push it and then the lights would flash to warn vehicles, and then they would cross at that time. So that is the intersection. Now we're going to talk about the remaining portion of Hope Street. So along Hope Street, many of the curb lines beyond the limits of the intersection are going to remain intact, in line with what you experience out there today. We are going to be closing the intersection that is currently located, the driveway, the parking lot driveway, that will be closed, and so new curbing will be placed there. And then these will maintain as parking spaces along the eastern northbound side of Hope Street, or yes, Hope Street. We are going to be continuing to maintain the bicycle sharrows, which are these pavement markings that you have probably seen throughout town, that are the bicycle symbol with the 2 arrows pointing forward, which is used to indicate that vehicles and bicycles are sharing the lane. Hence the term sharrows, with the sharing of lanes. We did investigate whether bicycle lanes would be an option as we investigated our concepts. but it really just wasn't the space wasn't available within the right of way for this location. We are looking to continue to maintain the existing stone wall and the landscaping that already helps to define the Springdale station. We'll be utilizing some of those stones from the stone wall where we're placing the new driveway entrance. There's a stone wall there today, so we'll be looking to remove that stone wall, but have the contractor maintain those stones on site and close some of the gaps in the stone wall to really direct the pedestrians to utilize the new connection points into the parking lot, which I'll discuss in a few minutes. And then any other stones we'll use to lengthen or the existing stone walls or provide other landscape architectural type features. Now, there are 2 existing bus stops along Hope Street northbound that I'd like to talk about. So the first northbound bus stop I'm going to talk about is at the south end of Hope Street. This X's marks are actually right after the bus stop. So right where my arrow is where the bus would be stopping adjacent to the sidewalk. And then where the X's are allows for the bus to, after it's been parked, to have the adequate length of distance in order for it to pull out into traffic and not be encumbered by parking vehicles that are parked in that area. And that's a standard length and dimensions that are set forth by Connecticut DOT Highway Design Manual. So that will be the south parking lot. We'll be pulling the sidewalk up adjacent to that bus stop so that it can have an accessible accessible bus stop at that location. And I'll talk about its connection into the parking lot shortly. At the north side, there's an existing bus stop that currently stops, as many of you probably are aware, adjacent to the on-street parking, which is not an accessible type of location. So we are looking to slide the northern bus stop to the far north end of the parking spaces, and sort of vice versa from the previous one. These X marks here are allowing the bus to pull into the bus stop area right after the parking spaces. And then we'll be either moving or providing a new, it's to be determined, bus shelter or bus enclosure. That terminology is used. You can see the existing one in the picture down below. It's a place for people who are looking to ride the bus to wait slightly out of the elements while they wait for the bus. So that new bus shelter location will be located at the north end of the parking lot, and again be ADA accessible adjacent to the sidewalk. Moving on to the next slide, I'm now going to talk about the parking lot on the north end. So we are providing 3 pedestrian entry points into the parking lot on the north side. The first one is at the bus shelter that I just discussed, one at the center, and then one at the intersection. So in these graphics, the green is representing grass or other landscape type areas. The gray is the bituminous. The light cream tan color is going to be the sidewalks. Not necessarily saying they're going to be that color. This is just a graphical representation, so it shows on your computer screen. The more burnt brick color is an opportunity to have some imprinted and stained concrete, some pavers, that sort of decorative elements. And then the dark line here is the stone wall that we're talking about. So at the Kiss and Ride, we are going to be increasing it to 5 parking spaces and also shifting it into the parking lot. By shifting it into the parking lot, we'll be able to provide an ADA width sidewalk on the passenger side of the vehicles. Again, keeping safety in mind and trying to get those people who are waiting for the vehicles a place to stand, as well as once they're out of the vehicles, they're able to make their way to the station without having to utilize the roadway. The north parking lot will maintain in its current one-way circulation pattern, as shown by the arrows, the white arrows that are on the pavement on your screen. And then the 3 crosswalks, or sorry, my mistake, 3 sidewalks that I mentioned previously, the one that's adjacent to the entryway, as well as the one that's in the center of the parking lot, very similar to the raised intersection, are going to be raised sidewalks. So these, again, will provide a level, pedestrian-friendly pathway from the sidewalk, from the on-street parking, from the bus stop, from the intersection to the station, as well as for any of the people utilizing the parking lot to have a clean pathway to the station. At the north end of the parking lot, where the bus shelter and the portion of Springdale to the north would be entering on the sidewalk, we will be providing 2 different small bicycle parking areas, as well as this mustard color rectangular at the bottom right hand of the screen. So the northeast corner of the parking lot, there are currently a set of small stairs up to the station platform at that location. We're looking to replace those with a ADA accessible ramp, so that someone from the bus stop wouldn't need to go all the way or zigzag all the way around to the current ramp location. So the current ramp will stay in place. All other stairs to the station and all other station aspects will remain in place. It is just that one set of stairs that we think would be of benefit to provide a dual accessibility to the platform. And then landscaping and illumination enhancements throughout. We will be looking at the existing landscaping that's out there, trying to determine its life that's left in each of the landscaping elements, and determining what needs to get removed, what needs to get replaced, what needs to be new. And that will be for the full parking lot as well as for the streetscape. Moving on to the next slide. So the south parking lot, the left-hand side of your screen, really has the biggest difference in the parking lot layout. As Luke mentioned previously, the existing day lot that's at the far south end of the parking lot, that's very tight spaces. We are looking to eliminate that, as well as the existing entrance. So the existing entrance, if you look at my nice, pretty, colorful graphic, is right where my new red arrow I just placed on the screen is. So that's the existing entrance that we will be closing off, and we'll be providing a more traditional 2-way circulation through the entire portion of that parking lot, as well as lengthening and providing some more central green space, green landscaping in the center of that parking lot. Similar to the north side, we'll be providing a raised pedestrian sidewalk to connect from Hope Street to, excuse me, to the east side of the parking lot, and we'll be providing the required ADA parking spaces, handicap parking spaces in the lot. Excuse me 1 second, I need to take a drink. As well as electrical vehicle parking. As electrical vehicle owner myself, I'm very excited to see when municipalities are really excited about providing electrical vehicle parking. So, I really thank the city for considering that and offering it to begin with. And then, similar to the north end of the parking lot, there will be landscaping enhancements and illumination enhancements. On the very south end of the parking lot, from the south bus stop, we are looking to provide a new sidewalk that goes along the property line at that location that provides full circulation of the parking lot with sidewalks. So really focusing on getting our pedestrians and our bicyclists and all of our people off of the pavement, out of the vehicular way, and finding a safe way to get to the station. And with that, I think we can go on to the next slide where Steve's going to talk about public access.
All right. Thank you, Katie. Yeah, really what I'm going to discuss is, how's a project generally going to be constructed. So one of the first things I want to mention is when the project is built, the goal is going to be, to minimize disruption and inconvenience to the traveling public, and also, providing safe and continued access for all users during construction. We anticipate that construction will be performed in a staged manner to reduce impacts. So for the local roads such as Hope Street, Clearview Avenue, and Largo Drive, the plan will be to maintain the existing number of travel lanes in each direction, except that there will be some periods of disruptions to this pattern, but only during allowable off-peak hours. So, when there's low traffic volumes and the contractor needs to get out there and do some work, there'll be maybe some short durations of alternating one-way traffic. However, at the end of the day, it'll be, and during the peak periods, there'll be operations as existing out there now. So for the station parking lot, it's anticipated that only a portion of the lot will be constructed at a time. So we're anticipating that when, say, for example, when the northern portion of the lot is constructed, the southern half will remain open and operational. And for example, when the southern half is going to be constructed, we're anticipating that the northern portion will be operational. As we move forward with design, there'll be staging plans that are created that depict this, but that's the general concept of how it will be constructed. And this, by doing it this way, this will allow for continuous service for the commuters and other users throughout construction. Additionally, during construction operations, we're going to be utilizing police officers and/or flaggers. They'll be used as required to direct traffic. Also, access to the station, businesses, and residences will always be maintained during construction. And lastly, again, safety is important. So providing safe pedestrian access and access for all users is going to be certainly maintained during construction. We can move on to the next slide, please. There's other impacts that we're going to be anticipated, and I'll kind of walk through those right now. In regards to rights of way, we do not anticipate any right of way acquisitions or takings or easements for this project. However, we are anticipating that there may be some temporary impacts, particularly along Hope Street on that northern side by Clearview Avenue, where there's some work adjacent to properties. We're anticipating that the contractor may need some rights to grade and reconstruct it where they're tying in the driveways and sidewalks, but minimal disruptions and only temporary impacts to improve the area. In regards to drainage, there was minor drainage modifications proposed along Hope Street, mainly at the raised intersection. So we're anticipating maintaining existing drainage lines, the main drainage trunk lines, and making just adjustments to catch basins in the area so things drain properly. Within the parking lot, again, we're planning on maintaining the existing trunk lines that run within the parking lot. However, we're anticipating to modify and relocate some inlet structures based on the parking lot reconfiguration. There are utilities throughout the project limits: electric, water, sanitary, gas. We're not anticipating any utility relocations with this project. However, we will be have full coordination with the utility companies as we move forward with the design process. In regards to natural resources, there are no wetlands or natural resources located within the project area, so we do not anticipate any impacts as part of this project. If we can move forward to the next slide, Grant. Okay, finally, the schedule, project schedule, as well as the construction schedule. So what we presented here tonight were conceptual level plans. This was what we were working on in the earlier part of 2022. Where we're at now, we have the public information here today. Following this public information meeting, we will be moving forward with preliminary design. And then following that, we would have final design. So we're anticipating prior to design completion, prior to June 2023 is when we're thinking design is going to be done. We do expect coming back to the public again to present, a more detailed plan to the public. As far as construction, we're anticipating construction to start in fall of 2023 and with construction completion in 2024. And again, we also anticipate another public information meeting to occur prior to construction so we can inform the public of what the anticipated construction schedule and scheme will be. So that concludes our presentation for today. So we'd be more than happy to take any questions that you may have.
Great, thanks everyone. And we'll just go over. So we have a few questions coming in here in the chat or in the Q&A section. We also have our hand raised. So, I think we'll go through the Q&A right now, just what I see here. So got a question about the bus shelter. So again, the bus shelter is kind of like the protective structure at bus stops that kind of cover bus riders from any elements, things like that. So I know the one right out there, I believe, is a little damaged. So, we might look to rehab that or replace with new if need be. It's a question about the additional parking on Hope Street. So those are the existing spaces on Hope Street right now, and the metered spaces, which we intend to remain on Hope Street. There's a few questions about parking in the lot during construction. It's nice a few years, 2 years ago, no one parked there at all. It has been growing a little bit more. As Steve mentioned, our intention is to keep parts of the lot open. That can get figured out in more detail and more in depth as we go through our design process, in terms of maybe it's not a half, maybe it's a quarter, or maybe the city can designate other spots like on Largo, for instance, or elsewhere on Hope Street. But that'll get worked on more during the final design process, as well as when we have a contractor on board. And then there's a question about the monthly versus the day lot. So there is now kind of a quote unquote separate day and month lot. Actually, I believe since 2019, any part of the parking lot can be used for day or monthly parking. After 10 a.m., you can park there during the day for $4. So part of this design basically just kind of creates one large parking lot, because you're allowed to park anywhere as a day parker, anywhere as a monthly parker. So we don't need those two segregated lots anymore. Let's scroll back up. So there's the commuter parking. There's questions about the speed, the raised intersection. So I was able to pull up some studies. So for instance, in terms of motorist yielding to pedestrians before and after the raised intersection went in, driver yield rates went from 10%. They went up about 55% for drivers yielding to pedestrians, and have some speed reductions here. The average speed in some locations were decreased from anywhere 4 to 12 miles per hour. So again, like if someone's going 35 miles per hour down Hope Street, their speed could get reduced down to 25 miles per hour, which is more appropriate and contextual for the area. We want people driving those speeds, and it's not like a normal speed hump per se. It's a slightly different design. So we're not having drivers go down to like 15, 20 miles an hour. It's a little bit more in the 25 mile per hour range, is much more appropriate for this area, really acting as a gateway treatment. So we're not expecting massive congestion related issues associated with that, with the traffic calming, but we think the benefits are very great in terms of getting people to slow down in the village. It's also less noise when you're eating outside or walking on the street or you're living in the area. Less noise from cars. So, and just having people drive an appropriate speed for this area. So there was that question. In terms of the traffic lights on all Hope Street, The scope for this project really is between Largo Drive and Largo Drives are like the only signal included in the scope of this project. It does include all the signals up on Hope Street overall, but we're happy to look into as the city, perhaps as a separate project, the signal timing along Hope Street as a whole, all the way up from Weed Hill. So I mentioned the speed reducers. Sorry. Are there any initiatives in place to minimize the safety risk on Hope Street prior to fall 2023? This is a larger scale capital project. So the question was, are there any initiatives in place to minimize the safety risk on Hope Street prior to fall 2023? So yes, this is a larger scale capital project that will be a few years out. We can certainly try looking into more temporary measures to improve safety before this project really kind of kicks off and gets into the ground. Right around kind of like Hope Street, for instance. And we can certainly take a look at that separately before the whole project gets going. There's a question, where can these plans be viewed? So we will be posting the recorded webinar, the presentation, project plans on the city website. And then my contact information, as well as the Transportation Bureau Chief, Frank Batisse's contact information, will also be on the website. There's mine right there. And we'll be more than happy to respond to any emails or phone calls related to questions about the plan. Does this plan have to be approved by Board of Finance or Board of Reps? So the project, all the funding. So this is a state-funded project. It's about $2 million grant. I believe all the funding has been approved by the Board of Reps, but it was about a year or so ago. So from my understanding, and I can double check this with my manager tomorrow, is that there's no approval required for these plans, as the project itself and the funding has already been approved and the grant has been accepted by the appropriate boards. Has the city considered adding speed cameras on Hope Street? So within the state of Connecticut, speed cameras are actually illegal. So they're illegal at the state level. So we are not authorized to use speed cameras anywhere in the state of Connecticut, but also on the city level, they are illegal as well. So let's say the state does legalize speed cameras, it would still be illegal and prohibited in Stamford due to existing city ordinance. I like the raised crosswalks in the parking lot and the intersection. They're great at the Stamford and Portchester stations. Thank you. We think that we use this on North State Street right in downtown. And we think it really helps with ADA accessibility as well as traffic calming in the area. So the question, Clearview is a very busy intersection. There'd be significant bottleneck at peak hours with entry, exit into train station and local residents accessing Clearview. There really should be additional exits. So I'll start off, and I think I'll let Fahid kind of comment a little bit more on this. But the interesting thing about train stations versus like schools, for instance, is that there are much more segregated times of when there's a larger flow of traffic exiting the train station lot. So there's about 200 or so spaces, but not all 200 of those drivers are coming off the same train. So it is a little more segregated. And we believe with the raised intersection also helps slow cars down, which can improve traffic operations at that location. And also just in general safety, we want to manage access management a little bit better. So we have more exit points on a Hope Street. That's also more, areas that crashes can occur. But Vahid, I don't know if you want to finish anything as well.
No, I think, look, I think you stated very clearly in terms of what the intent is here to make sure that, as much as we want to calm traffic through this area, but we also have to provide an efficient mobility. And I think this question really raises whether or not what we are doing here also allows for the vehicular traffic to move through the area, and especially during the peak hour, and safely and efficiently. And the answer to that is yes. I think, as you said, perhaps, sometimes congestion in an urban area may not be a bad thing during the peak hour, just to make sure that we balance the multimodal transportation so we allow pedestrians to safely cross the roadways and perhaps a little bit slower speeds. But we're certainly going to be looking at the operation at the intersections, both at Largo and the Clearview. We are going to be recommending some timing adjustments, some optimization of timing and phasing at Largo, in conjunction with the pedestrian improvements there for the crossings and as Steve mentioned, the ADA ramps. And I think that, I really, breaks my heart when I see, a comment about, pedestrian getting hit at the location. We take the safety very seriously, and I think that having the RFB at the intersection of Clearview, at both sides of Clearview, and we're going to be tying both RFP together, perhaps provides a better visibility for motorists to see that they're coming to a raised intersection with the flashing on both sides of the intersection. I think that's going to be a further alert of the, that there is a pedestrian crossing at that location. So we're gonna take additional measures to make sure that we implement enough improvements into our plan to make sure that we provide a safety option for the pedestrians. And as Katie mentioned, we're also bringing the corners of the intersections in just to reduce the pedestrian crossing along Hope Street. So that perhaps gives another visual, for the motorists, that there is a visual impediment, in the roadway, that they have to be clear in terms of, there is pedestrian activities in front of the station. And this is a vibrant area of Springdale, village. So I think by providing enough, measures in safety and operations, I think we're hopefully able to achieve what we need to do on this project.
Yeah, and it really kind of touches on what I mentioned before about this layered and redundant approach. So currently it's just a crosswalk with an RFB, but now we're proposing to have a raised intersection, slow cars down, bump outs that also slow cars down and reduce the amount of time pedestrians are actually in the road and could get hit by a car. And then on top of that, the RFBs as well. So it's really kind of a multi-pronged approach to improving pedestrian safety, at that location, and also just lower the overall inertia of a vehicle at that location. There's a question related to the train sounds. That's not really under the purview of our department. I know that the Western Connecticut Council of Governments is actually undertaking a study right now for a quiet zone on the New Canaan branch that would talk about that is looking into how to reduce the sound of the train horns. But that's really outside the purview of this project right now. Trying to see. So there's a question, since ridership is down, has there been any discussion of having a section of the lot dedicated for retail? So we have been seeing the lot kind of pick up a little bit, especially kind of like that Tuesday to Thursday time period. We have seen, increases in parking at the parking lot there. In terms of building a full structure there, I don't think that's something we've been considering. I think we want to preserve it for, parking. If perhaps in the future there might be interest in having parts of the lot used for, I don't know, food trucks, things like that. That could be looked into, but I don't think that's in the scope of this project right now, and that could be dealt with kind of operationally, perhaps, when the project is done. But no, we haven't really been looking into any construction of developments or retail at this location. It's just really emphasizing redoing the parking lot as well as the area along Hope Street right now. Okay, so there's a question related to the monthly year of the traffic study.
Yeah, we completed we actually did all of the data collection in 2021, which was really the latter part of the COVID. We actually looked at the historical data along Hope Street to make sure that if we have to make any adjustment for COVID, we certainly would do that. But what the data indicated, that actually the data that we collected back in 2021 was comparable to the pre-COVID conditions. So the data is pretty conservative as we start looking at the operational analysis.
Katie, you want to take that? So there's a question, what is being done to reduce urban runoff with respect to management, inclusion of imperviousness and pervious surfaces and materials, such as reducing hard paved areas, using landscaping to reduce absorb runoff, and also to soften the hardscape environment visually and sustainably. I know we're doing a lot with landscaping, but Katie, you want to take a
I'd
little
love
bit more
to talk about that one. I would love to. Thank you. So yes, I mean, there is a direct relationship to the amount of imperviousness, hardness, water, when water hits a hard surface, it runs off very quickly. When water hits a soft surface like grass, like mulch, like landscaping, it has some flow as it goes across the ground, but it has those opportunities to infiltrate, to go down into the ground. So on the south parking lot, we are having a substantial decrease in imperviousness because of adding the large landscape island down the center of the south portion of the parking lot, and where that really dense pavement is of the existing entrance and the existing what was previously the day lot. So we're definitely looking to reduce runoff in those areas. As far as some of the other best management practices, BMPs, you might hear that terminology thrown around. We're really looking to to see as the design progresses. There might be opportunities, for whether we have some leak off areas to rain gardens in the landscape areas before it goes, an overflow into the pipe system. Those are definitely things and features that we'll be looking at further as the design progresses and seeing how it will fit. But there will be a reduction in the urban runoff due to this project because of the benefit of all the landscaping that we're going to be adding.
Yeah, and then I know there's always questions in terms of like landscaping with maintenance. So our department is actually also in charge of the maintenance of this parking lot. We actually have dedicated crews to maintain the landscaping in our train station parking lots as well. I know there's always some concerns when it comes to landscaping related to maintenance issues.
And actually, one other aspect of that I didn't really answer, but would like to, is there are different types of pavement. You might see videos on the internet of people pouring a ton of water onto pavement. It's called impervious or pervious pavement instead of impervious pavement. Those type of treatments are definitely something that we'd be able to discuss with the city. They're not always the best in New England environments, just because of our winters. But those pervious surfaces, pervious pavement surfaces, especially in some of the parking spaces versus like the main aisles, is definitely something that we can continue to investigate as the design progresses if the city is interested.
So how will the design improve safety of Largo Drive? The main issue there being trucks entering that industrial area. So the scope of the project doesn't fully include the Largo Drive intersection from a geometric perspective. It includes it more from a traffic signal timing perspective. I know we did some repaving on Largo Drive more to kind of give more space for trucks turning there. I think that the city kind of separately from this project might be interested in looking at some other kind of pavement marking improvements north of Largo Drive. I know it's very wide open right now. And perhaps there can be some other improvements in terms of lane definition, or designated areas that also reduce congestion, such as having there's no left turn lane, I believe, into Largo Drive right now. And maybe that's something we can look at as well in the future to not only improve trucks turning there, but as well as just the overall traffic congestion, which I know is a concern on Hope Street. As Fahid mentioned, that light is unique because, at the railroad crossings, the lights are actually tied in with the railroad crossing. So it's like a unique type of traffic light versus what we have in other parts of the city. So we can certainly look into that. I think so. So there's questions about ridership to the train station on bike riders. So start off, like 39% of people actually get to the Springdale train station by walking, and that's from the Springdale TOD study. About 2% take a bike to the train station. So we are definitely dedicated and interested in improving safety overall for bike riders in Springdale and on Hope Street. It's a congested area, and we want to improve that accessibility overall for people riding on Hope Street. There's a question related to the Hawk traffic signal. So the Hawk traffic signal is a type of traffic signal we have in certain places on Washington Boulevard, by the government center here, or in front of Mill River, or in front of Stanford High School. I don't think that's really meeting the warrants or is necessarily fully appropriate or needed at the Clearview intersection. Mentioned before, we have the raised intersection, we have the bump outs, and we also have the dual sets of RFBs, and all those kind of combine significantly improve driver yield rates as well. there. So so it is concerning the date of the data. Train parking wasn't at pre-COVID capacity and Clearview have resident. It wasn't clear in presentation. Will sidewalks from Largo to Clearview be redone or just at intersections? Would like to sidewalk design be consistent as Northern Hope by restaurants. So in terms of the COVID and the traffic information, you can talk a little bit more about this, but you know, we looked at some pre-COVID studies, and we also did some enhancements and alterations to the studies to take into account, you know, some of the reduced traffic levels that were resulting from COVID. You know, coming from the train station parking lot, we were able to say, hey, there's, you know, X number of parking spaces in the train station lot in a day. We know that this many people will get picked up and dropped off from the train station. So we're able to kind of calculate how many people actually exit the train station parking lot. And then we took that into account with our traffic study. But Vahid, I don't know if you want to touch a little bit more on the traffic study, and then
No, I
second
think
part of the
you
question.
said exactly what we have done. We actually adjusted the peak hour turning movement counts at the intersection. We looked at the ridership at the station, pre-COVID condition by time of day of week of the month, and those adjustments were all made into the baseline condition, so that we wanted to make sure that we have a good representation of peak hour condition at pre-COVID condition.
In relation to the sidewalks, you know, I believe currently, actually, do you want to pull back up the concept plan? I believe we're going all the way up to Largo. You know, depending on budgeting, you know, what possible like city funds we have, we could look into extending and redoing some sidewalks in other parts of the area on Hope Street. You know, kind of on the west side. You know, if we have available funds for that, I think that's something we can definitely look into as we work on design. So we have two raised hands. So we on Lenka Burke. So I think I just have to do allow to talk, right, Grant? Yeah. So
I just gave that permission. Thank you, Luke.
okay. So Lenka, I believe your hand's up. You're available to talk. So you asked a question in the chat. So the pedestrian overpass, there's been a lot of studies. There's a question about having pedestrian overpass at this location. There's been a lot of studies done on pedestrian overpasses, and they've been shown that they're not actually very safe, as it's a significant burden on pedestrians to go up escalators, up 18 feet in the air, or up elevators and all the way down to the other side. It's really not walkable. It's not pedestrian friendly. It's a significant maintenance expense too, as well as right-of-way concerns if you're going to have the elevator or, you know, switchbacks to get up and over the roadway. So it's really not something that's very feasible at this location or in most locations in an urban environment. You know, you have them over highways usually in, you know, 6 to 8 lane freeways, but you wouldn't have them over the road here. So there's also a question about miscellaneous embezzlements, such as small fountains, bench seating around park areas, under trees, and on the street. So I believe we actually talked about like doing a new flagpole in the parking lot, and, you know, doing some benches. I know at the entrance, on the northern entrance, pedestrian entrance, you know, there's kind of a little new plaza area near the bus stop, and I know like the Springdale Neighborhood Association might enhance some gardens over there. I think that's definitely something we'd be happy to look into in terms of some benches or plaques. We talked about the flagpole. I know there's the clock on the southern entrance, I believe, in that area. But I certainly think that's something we can look into during the design process. So I hope that answers that question. Jordan, you have your hand raised. I'll ask you to unmute.
Yeah, so I just want to say this project seems pretty good. I like the raised crosswalks a lot because, you know, we have them at, well, one of them in front of the Stanford station, and in the Port Chester station. I work in Port Chester. The parking lot has them too. And when I'm there, I don't know if it's actually safer, but it feels a lot safer. It's also nice not having to like, step off and like onto the roadway, to sort of have it be level.
Yeah, it's definitely much better from an ADA perspective. Like if you're in a wheelchair, for instance, you don't have to go down and then
Yeah.
back up. And you're
Yeah.
also more visible to drivers as well, just being more elevated if you're in a wheelchair. Like I see you still have your hand raised. You're free to unmute. If not, I know you had a question about ramp pedestrian overpasses. So same thing, you need a lot of switchbacks to go back and forth because you need a certain grade. Right, Katie, you need a certain grade to go up so that, it would probably take, there'll be right of way concerns related to that to be able to have enough room to actually facilitate that and also to have the sidewalk go around. So it's not really feasible. Sounds like a fantastic plan. Thank you. Is there any chance for this plan to be canceled? No, it's a state funded project, so there's no municipal funds that are, really related or having to be go towards supporting this right now. And we have it's a $2 million grant, by the way, from the state we received. So I don't foresee any reasons why this would be canceled. With that, those were all the Q&A questions. Grant, you want to just go down to the contact info slide? Myself, the rest of the department here, we are always available for anyone to reach out to speak with about the project. We'll be posting this recording, the presentation, and kind of a larger image of the proposed plan on our website. You can find us at stanfordct.gov. We're always happy to talk with you about the project, answer any questions, take recommendations, certainly. We're here to, really, we're happy about the project. We're excited about the project, and we think will really be a great improvement to Springdale. I don't see any more Q&As in here, but again, that's my contact info if you have any other questions. And we'll be certainly having more meetings in the future as we progress with design. But yeah, I just want sorry, Monica. But if with that, I just wanted to thank everyone for coming out tonight. Thank you very much, and everyone have a nice evening.
Thank you very much.